There you go.
There you go, bring that up just a little bit more. Okay, so my husband's opinion, I didn't have an opinion on this, but my husband did. But again, was a diesel mechanic. He said definitely, it depends. With the EW4 engine warranty, he said it depends on how long you plan on keeping this truck. And if you plan on keeping it for more than 7 years, then he would definitely suggest that you do, the 7-year warranty, because the difference between 5 years and 7 years is only like $500, $510. And really for it being what it is, that's your best bet, your 7-year warranty. So that was his suggestion. He also suggested that you do not do a chassis warranty. He does not feel that that's something that would even be an issue. And he definitely said you want the transmission one, the 5-year unlimited miles for $938. So that is our suggestion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so.
I'm happy to help. It's great to have people to have information like that. So, and he actually consulted with one of his friends as well, who owns multiple diesel CDL trucks. So we actually all sat here probably a half an hour before the meeting and discussed your warranties with each other.
Thank you very much. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'll make the motion.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And then financing options, are we making a decision on that tonight, or were we just going over it, or where do we stand with that?
I think if you're ready to make direction, it would be helpful because there will be some legal documentation that needs to be generated.
Okay.
So the sooner we start that, the sooner.
Were we taking anything from equipment fund, or were we just financing all this?
Well, you're gonna have to, because that doesn't have all of the equipment. There's still no plow and cinder spreader in that price that she gave you.
So we're financing. The price that's
The
on
figure,
here,
the figure up there,
The
162, doesn't include the cinder spreader and the snow plow that puts up.
so that's what we're gonna pay out of pocket? Or,
If that's what you wanna do.
We have it in an account, don't we? Can we put that aside for equipment fund?
It's gonna take 70% of it, of your equipment account.
How much is the additional cost?
I don't have the quote in front of me. I thought I sent it up, but I don't remember. I'm gonna tell you it's right around 30,000. For the plow, the cinder spreader, 1 spots, and the rest of it puts up.
So if you added that, it would be 192,000, roughly.
Yeah,
I think we should probably stick with the 162 figure,
Yeah,
And
I think
pay
you
the-
pay that, pay
pay
the
the
other
rest
out of pocket.
out of pocket. And what about the warranties? Do you plan on keeping this truck for over 7 years?
you've been keeping them 15 to 20.
Okay, so
So, yes.
I would say with that, we'll probably do the 7-year, 100,000 on the engine,
The engine for certain because of the emission system.
and then
And
the transmission.
the
for
transmission-
938, you might as well do the
Exactly, it's not a.
5-year unlimited.
Right.
So do we
Right,
need
or
separate motions for all that, or?
I think for now, just a motion to proceed with financing option number
Which was that, 3?
3, together with the warranties that you want, and then make it subject to compliance with all required laws and legal opinions, et cetera, then we can start work on that option.
So does
that
someone
warranty.
wanna make a motion for number 3 with the warranty 7-year on the engine, 5 on the transmission with the information Eric just stated?
Nothing on the chassis for salt. That's the,
How do you feel about the chassis?
I'm all right with letting that go.
I'll make the motion.
You have a motion motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And with that, you should expect a subsequent motion in another month or so with the actual financing documents ready for signatures and such.
Okay. Transfers for payroll. We need a motion to transfer the amounts. What, do we have that amount?
It's
30?
basically a ratification,
Okay.
last payroll, it was 35,000.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for 35,000.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay, so I think Diana's gonna log off now, is that okay?
Everybody done with Diana?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Diana. All right, expense list.
Nobody has any questions or concerns, I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we pushed off the resolution for attending public meetings to reporting proceedings. Did anyone wanna go over that yet? Have you reviewed it? Put a thought into it? No? Okay, so we're gonna push that. Everyone, you wanna push it?
Yeah.
Okay. Troop 37, carnival proposal.
Hello, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Chaz Andrews. I'm from Alt Mountain Council Boy Scouts of America, which is the council located up in Reading that covers Berks County and Schuylkill counties. I have a proposal on behalf of Troop 37 as well as the Frontier District, which is a smaller part of an operating arm of the Alt Mountain Council, for having a scout show or carnival. Unfortunately, I only have one left. The objective being to provide a fun community activity for the local community, businesses, as well as the local troops and packs in the area. Both Troop and Pack 37, since Pack 37 is recently starting back up in St. Thomas Episcopal Church right now, as well as Troop and Packs and troops. 543, which meets at Joanna Furnace out of, and has ties with Robinson Lutheran Church out that way. And what it would be having the troops and packs have a display of either a cooking skill or other scouting skill of sorts. The district would provide some fun activities, such as some pioneering playground opportunities, such as the spider cue, which I have there, monkey bridge, ladder ball, tic-tac-toe. Fun activities geared for people of multiple different ages. The cost of the event would be for free for the public, just a free event for people. We would love to do it in late April, early May, utilizing Carnarvon Park.
Did you see it?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, I mean, you're looking for donation to the park?
Yeah, just use the park.
Well, I mean, normally, this would just be scheduled for the park, or should this go to the Park and Rec? I mean, where's this,
Just for the day.
Just for the day.
just for the day?
Should check, make sure Park and Rec doesn't have it.
Right,
Yeah, I think
right.
we'll pass this on to Park and Rec and let them kinda work out the details, if that's all right.
That's perfectly fine. I have my
So-
contact information. Well, I have my address on there. I can leave my contact information with Joan.
Okay, so then we'll forward this over to Park and Rec, and then they can, I guess if they have questions, they can contact
Do
him
you have a
directly,
business card?
I do.
and then it's just a matter of scheduling what's open on the calendar.
Right, and
Yep.
so, did I hear, as far as the fee goes, is it donation? No cost, or?
You wanna make the fee, I mean, it includes the local troops and, you know, yeah, so I
I would
mean, I
say we
don't
don't
see a
fee.
problem with the fee for it.
Well, you gotta make sure it don't interfere with anything we have.
Right, exactly.
And this is for just the park, it's not gonna have anything to do with the MAA scheduling, it's just park.
Just Mark.
Then you should make a motion to waive the fee.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Do you have a card?
I do. to Eric. Keep digging. Just make my contact information.
Well, we have a community carnival here, and we're always looking for the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to attend. We usually try to give them a booth that they can do something to raise money, so that's why I wanted to contact you. So,
Yes, I am more than willing to do that with the purpose of, our carnival would be, or scout show would be,
Well, that's what I think.
promote
when originally
awareness.
Brought forward, I wasn't really sure we were talking about carnival, because we try to offer up to the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, all the
Oh,
nonprofits,
yes.
so. You know, if you're interested, I mean, we've had them help park cars, I mean, they've done numerous different things with some of the local troops, so. Even if you have other troops that, you know, are interested, just let us know.
Definitely.
Okay, we have a letter of interest for Park and Rec. Did this go through Park and Rec, or does it come straight to us?
It came straight, cause we just got it the 3rd of
Okay,
February,
so,
so.
once again, something we,
We
yeah,
actually asked him to send the letter.
Okay,
This is
all right.
about- This is about show over?
yes,
Yeah, we
okay,
asked him
all right,
to
so
send
we
the
don't need
letter.
to send it to
We
you.
already kind of.
Okay. So,
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So normally, so we don't have confusion in the
Yep.
future,
They can be in
how do we
touch.
know we should accept it? I mean, normally, do we go to Park and Rec, or do we always just do the appointments for the committee? Is that the way it's done, or do they refer
Well, I
them
think
to
that
us?
was set up in their guidelines, wasn't
How,
it, Eric?
okay,
Okay, I don't have the guidelines.
okay,
Yeah, I don't
all right,
either,
I just
but-
wanted to make sure we weren't. All right,
Terry, does that fill you guys now?
I think we still have one, that makes 6, and I think we can have 7.
okay. Zoning amendment for IOP, county review letter update.
This is for the two relatively minor changes, it's unrelated to Burke's Homes. The county presented a review letter with no comments or reviews one way or the other. This would reduce the height max from 75 to 45. It would strike reference to an air park, a planned residential air park use from the list of permitted uses. There's no obligation that you move forward now, but the next step, if and when you're ready, would be to schedule a public hearing, which we would be able to do for your March board meeting, if you wanna see that on the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion? Motion, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Craft engineering planning consultant options, what did you find out?
So, Paula did reach out after the workshop meeting, and actually Joan had reached out last week as well. Some of the questions were, do we offer the planning as part of what we do? We do, is it a different rate? No, it's the standard rate that we had in the our proposal and our fee schedule. I think the question was related to the planning and the planners that have been, I don't know at what level they've been in front of the board. I know they've been with the planning commission, but I think from what I understand, they are certified planners. To that extent, that's not necessarily a level of planning that we typically get into. We will evaluate any zoning maps, zoning ordinances, any other ordinances, offer our comments on what's feasible, but getting into the evaluation of the demographics, the fiscal analysis that go along with some of the other planning that you would get from a certified planner, we don't typically do that. To be involved, if there was input that you would need in reviewing a possible planner, sure. On a typical municipal level, we have been involved on several municipal plans on trying to plan, help, and direct in different ways. But I think that was the question being asked in relation to that same type of planning. If there's other questions anybody else has, but I thought it was more appropriate to kind of come and have a dialogue with anybody.
Okay.
Well, so before Burke's gets up here, I mean, you've had a chance to look and see what they're proposing, I would assume, correct? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
So I had looked at the ordinance that was prepared. There are some comments we had kind of prepared for the meeting, didn't know how that was gonna proceed and, how we're gonna address that. Obviously, the residential is a change, it's an amendment handled by, the text amendment here is an overlay. I think it's similar to the PRD, a little less. I think the density was less than what you're looking at there. Many of the options aren't shown there. There were some comments that we had and got those answered, but it's somewhat reasonably laid out if that's the direction that this is going. Again, that was not knowing the history of where we got to this point. We reviewed it as just that amendment with that plan. As I said, we had some comments on that. I think there's some discussion to be had there, but generally the layout, I see what they're doing there. It's for the most part reasonable as far as a residential development. I think the biggest comments I would offer were the impacts with traffic. Again, that was not knowing the history. There would be some questions I have along the way on that, but I don't know if that generally answers your question or not, but.
Okay. All right, so Burke's Homes. Who's speaking?
I'm gonna start. Most of you know who I am, but I'm Gary McEwen with Burke's Homes. Along with me tonight is Mr. Farino, Nathan Fletcher, Sean Swaggart, Chip Hawes, who's our attorney. He's filling in for Bill, Eric Mounts, who's our traffic engineer, and Mr. and Mrs. Byler, who are the property owners. Before I get started, I'd like to address some of the public comments. You know, there's the assumption out there that a planner wasn't used as part of this process. We actually used two planners. In the very beginning, we had Brad Clayson. For any of you that know anything that's like south and east, Brad Clayson has a pretty good reputation. He's an expert in market analysis. He did a commercial analysis at a tri-county area of how this area, or what the demands are for this area. And in the tri-county area, we have currently the most vacant space, which indicates that it's somewhat less desirable in the other areas. The other planner that we used, and we shared that information with the board. So it's information that was submitted way back when we started this process. We also used the planner, Bob User, and we're familiar with Mr. Committa. We've worked with Mr. Committa. If he's on your side, he's doing everything he can for you. If he's on the other side, he's doing everything he can against you. He misrepresented a couple of things as it related to Penwood, but we don't need to go into that. They were minor. Bob User has a very good reputation, does a lot of work for the big builders in the Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County area. He looked at the PRD ordinance, and we directed him to do that based on what we've heard in the past was the intent of, or some ideas that were considered for this property. And I don't know if any of you were around when, I guess it was, well, some of you were in 2017. There was discussion about mixed use, and that's what we directed Bob to look at. And he looked at the ordinances, and he spent a whole lot of time on it. And the first plan that we came out with, and I'll show that in a little bit when we start slideshow. So the fact that there wasn't a planner involved in this process, it was a planner that we hired, surely, but there was a planner involved. So it wasn't like, Burke's Homes went into the drafting department and started, putting lots on a plan. There was some thought to it. not to pick out people by name, but Mr. Razor, you're a successful businessman. Have you ever made an offer on the property to buy? I mean, this property's been available for sale for a while, and I'm just curious. You don't have to answer me if you don't want to, but
I would love to make an offer on the property. I would love to talk to Vernon and make an offer. If he would sit down with me, I would gladly make an offer.
well, we already have an offer, and we already have an agreement of sale, and
Then why did you ask the question?
If I made an offer, though, it wouldn't have any zoning, it would, it would comply with the zoning. I wouldn't ask for exceptions.
what we propose is mixed use. In the definition of mixed use, it is mixed use. Somebody mentioned a grocery store. In the past, I worked with the Gennardis and the Clemens. You don't have enough rooftops for another grocery store in this area. So it's kind of a catch-22. You don't want the residential, but you need the residential in order to get some restaurants and maybe a grocery store. There was a comment made about expanding the zoning. I'm not sure what that was about, but in 2017, not to reiterate this, but in 2017, there was a proposal for a large warehouse. There was a slight change to the zoning ordinance. Mr. and Mrs. Byler pulled that plan off as a result of that. And I believe they were under the impression that this property would be looked at from a residential standpoint. At least that's what my understanding is. Traffic, we'll talk about traffic in a little bit. So I should not pay attention to social media, but because of social media, I thought before we get into the slideshow, I'd just address a couple of things from a timeline. We came to the supervisors in November 2020, and they recommended, some of you recommended to go to the Planning Commission. So we were in front of the Planning Commission in December 2020. So we've been in several meetings between now and then. We're not going around anybody's back to come to this meeting. We've been to the Planning Commission meeting several times. We've provided information that I talked about earlier, that from a commercial standpoint, comparing large retail centers to see what kind of demand would be there, because it would be similar zoning to what's in Morgantown Crossings. We provided traffic information from a professional traffic engineer that has extensive experience in this township, and also explained the process as it works with PennDOT. We provided estimated tax information, which I'll go into more detail in a little bit. We provided elevations to the Planning Commission, and I believe the supervisors of the houses that we would like to build here, as well as the townhomes, and at one point the apartments, which got pulled off. We explained that there will be a homeowners association to maintain most of the roads, the open space, and the stormwater facilities. We discussed and rediscussed road widths several times at Planning Commission meetings. We discussed sewer capacity, that at the time, the current sewer plant is about 50% of their capacity. I believe it's a 990,000 gallon per day plant. They're around 450, 500 last time, when we talked about it back almost a year ago. Water, we talked about water. They just put a new well in. They have lots of water, and they're looking for customers. We talked about police. I pulled some old police reports because there was a concern that adding these units would require, first it was one extra policeman, and then it was 2 extra policemen. We reported that about 5.5% of the calls actually go to residences.
Why are we going over this again? I've been listening to you talk for a year and a half on the same thing.
Can I finish what I'm talking, and then, okay, thank you. This is so everybody understands that we're not trying to go around.
No one thinks that.
Well, sure, everybody has been saying it.
That.
So a lot of this information that has been put out that we need to look at again, and we have addressed. I think some of it is that maybe one or some of the Planning Commission members don't like some of the information that's been provided. The reason why we're here And we received an invitation at our request back in January to come to this meeting. Then we got pushed off this meeting and we asked to get put back on the meeting. The reason why we're here is because the planning commission voted 2 in favor of recommending to the supervisors to advertise the ordinance, which is what we're here tonight for. This isn't approving anything. This is just to advertise the ordinance. That was a 2 in favor, 2 against, and 1 no decision. So without any clear-cut direction, we felt that we need to come to the supervisors to ask for the supervisor's opinion. There were some nasty comments made on social media and accusing board members of kickbacks. Whoever does that, they'll be ashamed of themselves. That's absolutely not true. So with all that said, can you see if we can pull the slides up? I just have 9 of them, so it'll go quick, I promise.
So, which one would you like me to open?
One, it says PowerPoint. Bylaw PowerPoint. Yep. Drop down to, that's just introduction page. The second page is just stable comments, so drop again. This is the current property the way it is. The reason why this slide is here to show that there's no trees, there's no wetland areas, so there's no environmental impacts that that anyone should be concerned about. We've done a phase 1 study on the property, an environmental study, which came back clean. So the only purpose of this is so you can see that there's not going to be any trees taken down or any habitat that's going to be disturbed. You can move on to the next one, please. This is the first plan that we came back with, a true mixed use. This was what was directed to Bob User, our planner. It has, this thing doesn't.
Yeah, I saw it a little bit. There you go.
Oh, I'm just off. All right, well, the bottom area, yeah, it's not going to show up. The bottom area, the big rectangle in green, is will remain a commercial portion of the property. It's approximately 8 acres. The area to the left was 144 apartments. In between was 42 townhomes and 110 single-family homes. We were proposing with this plan to cul-de-sac at the end of Morgan Trailers parking lot. Maybe I can get that right. Why is that working on the screen? And after hearing what some neighbors and residents had to say, we realized that this wasn't a viable option as far as traffic. Our goal was to eliminate the current intersection, if you want to call it that, where Willow Glen meets 23 and tie it into the traffic light over at Lowe's right up above there. So we heard a lot of pushback on the apartments, so we decided, and we did hear from a planning commission member that said if you take the apartments out, you know, I could support the plan. I don't think that necessarily happened. So you can go to the next slide, which is what we currently have in front of the planning commission. That previous slide had 296 units. This has 221 units, a reduction of about 25% of the units. There are 86 townhomes and 135 single families, again, along with the approximately 8 acres of commercial. The roads tied in a little different, and in some of the discussions that we had, we tried to do the best that we could to isolate the current residences, and Sandy, this isn't vindictive, but there are some right behind your property that some other folks said that we should probably look at redoing that. So this is a concept plan. We haven't done any stormwater design, and things could change as we come up with stormwater. We have the entire perimeter buffered, which is consistent with the ordinance's landscape plan, which Eric provided us, Mr. Brown provided us with some various townships that we worked through. Buffering the whole perimeter. We do have a walking trail that goes across along the berms that shield the industrial, right up above, up there, that will shield the industrial, or not the industrial, but the commercial area from the residential area. And probably we need to make a connection over to Twin Valley Coffee when that happens, because maybe we can save a whole lot of traffic. As a result of the reduction, the traffic went down. Eric Mounce is gonna talk about traffic in a second. Can you move on to the next slide, please?
Who's taking care of the walking trail?
The Homeowners Association. Oh. Yeah, maybe I didn't make that clear. That's a good question. We're proposing a backup plan. This is important. I'm glad you asked that question.
You wanna go to this one?
Yes. We're proposing to relocate Willow Glen Road to bring it around the townhomes. The back of the commercial area, as I said earlier, there'll be some berming and shielding between the commercial area and the residential area, and tied into a road that comes out at the intersection across from Lowe's. That would remain a township road, and we're proposing that a road that ties up into.
I can't see where you mean. Where's the township road? Because I want to understand this.
Okay, so that's Willow Glen Road right
So
there.
our township is going to be responsible for plowing that road.
You're responsible for it now.
Yeah, we're responsible for
And that's
it.
all, so it's going to remain the same? They're going to take care of everything, right? Just want to make sure.
The other road we're proposing, and the only other road we're proposing, that would be a township road, would go from the traffic light, like from here.
Lowe's?
Yeah, that traffic light, and then go on the eastern side of the property, the road that goes up to the right, and tie it into a stub road that was, I believe that's Hunter Hill Road in Highcroft. That there was a future stub put in there for a future tie-in to give Highcroft better access to Route 23 at a safer intersection. The rest of the streets are proposed to be maintained and owned by the homeowners association, just as the open space, just as the trees, and also the stormwater facilities.
You would have to add another 3 or 4 buses just to take care of all those.
There was a
I'm
concern
talking
about,
school buses.
excuse me, sir, I'm not finished.
I said that you would have to.
I'm not finished.
That's a good way to treat us when you're trying to get into our township. Nice.
Can I just
Go ahead.
finish what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
go ahead.
I'm just, I don't wanna be rude, but I also expect
Well, I
the
don't want to be
same.
rude either, but the people that live up above there, what is that doing to their property, value?
They'll probably increase them because what we're proposing, the single families will be $400,000 homes.
Okay, so we'll let him speak and then we'll open it up for any comments. Okay.
He's rude.
So a question was asked, and Keith asked this question, it was about MS4. If this township ever becomes an MS4 township, and the threshold is 400 dwelling units, 10,000, I looked it up, it's 4,000 dwelling units and 10,000 residents. So we're close to 4,000 residents, but not 10,000. So if that happens, we build into the homeowners association agreements that they are responsible for the inspections, the maintenance, and providing a report to the township if and when you would need MS4 reported. Okay, you can move on. Thanks for the question.
But the open spaces are maintained by the HOA.
That's correct. You can go to the next slide. I think I'm finished. Wasn't there one in there, the traffic, wasn't there one in there showing the turnpike?
After this one, Gary.
It's after this one, okay. I just put this in there, this just shows with the widening of the turnpike and lengthening the bridge, where the new Willow Glen would tie in if we're not successful in moving forward with our project. We have, and Eric can speak to this, but we have been in discussions with the township, or with the engineers that are working for the turnpike, and Eric, you can update them on the status of that. I just threw this in here for information piece. I believe, and if you go back a slide, that's traffic, and I think Eric, you probably should pick up the traffic.
Good evening, as Gary said, my name is Eric Mounts with Traffic Planning Design. Just a little background, I've been with TPD for 20 years at this point, registered professional engineer, as well as a certified professional traffic operations engineer. At some prior planning commission meetings, there were questions about my knowledge of the area. Just wanted to point out, I grew up in this area, lived here my whole life. Grandparents lived across the street here on North Street. I went to Twin Valley, still live in this area. Was involved in the Elvis Morgantown Lions Club, so very familiar with the area. Also have done a fair amount of work in this area. We have done work on the Morgantown Apartments project, the Taco Bell and Starbucks, and while just outside of your boundaries here, I was also involved in the Wawa project, so pretty familiar with the Route 23 corridor. I'd like to break this up a little bit into two parts for the purposes of the traffic discussion. The first will be, before we get to this slide, just a general overview. If this project were to move forward, what the process would entail. Given the fact that this project will include access to Route 23, PennDOT will be involved in all of the approvals for this project. HOP permits will be required for all of the access points. Therefore, we will have submissions and reviews by both PennDOT as well as the township engineer as basically independent third-party reviewers of all of the traffic impact studies presented, all of the design plans presented for this development. Basically, PennDOT breaks their approval process into three parts. The first step would be to submit a scoping application, which basically sets the framework for the traffic studies that would be done for the development to make sure all parties are on the same page. The second step would then be to do the traffic impact study, submit that to PennDOT and the township for review by both parties in accordance with their regulations. Once the traffic study is approved, we then move on to the design plans of any roadway improvements that are deemed necessary for the project. So it's kind of a quick overview of if this project is to move forward, what next steps would be. Second part of what I wanted to cover is this slide, and this is more in the context of the zoning request that is before you. Right now the property is zoned IOP, looking to go with the plan that was presented by Mr. McEwen for the 135 singles and 86 townhomes. The purpose of this slide is just going to give some background and perspective on existing traffic volumes, which is the column on the left there. That information is obtained from either PennDOT's website or recent traffic studies that were done in the area. Gives you the top number there is the 24-hour period. Gives you, using round numbers here, 13,000 cars a day on Route 23, and then gives you the peak hour volumes for both your AM and PM weekday commuter peaks, and then your Saturday peak hour, which is typically your midday time period. Second column is the proposed rezoning and the traffic that can be anticipated based upon the proposed residential development. Those numbers are based upon the ITE trip generation manual, which is the standard for any transportation planning and studies. It's not something my firm comes up with, it's an industry standard that's used by all traffic engineers. Based on that information, the residential community anticipated to generate 1,935 trips for a typical weekday. I'm just going to go with the weekday. If there are questions on any of the peak hour numbers, certainly feel free to ask. The columns to the right of the proposed use are basically within the IOP zoning district, just some typical by right uses that would be allowed within that. It does note the number of acres that that use would typically occupy, just in ballpark figures, based on some other existing uses in the area. So you can see things like a supermarket, fast food restaurant, a shopping plaza of about 150,000 square feet, which would be comparable to the Crossings development across the street. High turnover restaurants, which are your Applebee's or Texas Roadhouse Place restaurants, a pharmacy. We laid those in there and basically presented traffic volumes for those uses that are allowed under the current zoning. As you can see, individually, most of those generate more traffic than what the proposed residential uses would generate. And collectively, if you look at the column on the far right, if you add those up collectively, that would net out to about 35 acres, which leaves about 38% open space here with this 56 acres. You can see that the daily traffic number would be upwards of 19,000 vehicles per day, so about 10 times what the residential development could generate. Similar to this, not shown in the table to give you a real world perspective, I mentioned we worked on the traffic study for the Taco Bell Dunkin' Donuts site. That is also in the IOP zoning district. We pulled that traffic study to just look at what that traffic generation would be. Their daily traffic was about 3,600 trips per day on a 2.8 acre site, to give you an order of magnitude of the level of traffic that the commercial uses generate. Point being is, under the current zoning with the commercial uses, the traffic is much more intense than what's proposed here. Residential, we've heard, is a lot of traffic. In the scheme of what could be here under IOP with by right uses, the traffic from what is proposed would be much less intense. Joe, if you could just quickly, Gary touched on the slide with the turnpike here. This is the presentation plan from the public meeting that they had that shows the widening and the relocation of Willow Glen Road, under the assumption that this development would not move forward. We have been in contact with the Turnpike Commission's engineers, which is AECom and Urban Engineers. They were very happy when we contacted them about potentially talking about the relocation of Willow Glen. Obviously, everyone knows the existing configuration is not great. Given the constraints with the bridge and the existing property, even this design, you can see as it comes into Route 23, still at a very hard 90-degree angle, still not optimal, but they don't have a lot of choices if the property remains as is. So they were more than open to a dialogue if this development moves forward. Basically what will happen is Willow Glen intersection would go away, as the plan showed, routed through the development out to a safer intersection, through a signalized intersection opposite the Lowe's.
Is there anything else you wanted me to touch on?
I don't believe, there might be some questions.
Thank you.
We got two more slides, then we're good. Do you wanna go to? In your packet that I dropped off Friday, I made a mistake. I made a mistake on the taxing, the slide that's up. Try to add in like we built the whole project in the first year. So I split it out. I'll give you some more on there. So this is a little bit of a comparison. These are actual, this is all math. So the next slide, just don't go to the next slide, but the next slide backs up how this is calculated. So we took the total market value times the common level ratio, factored by the common level ratio, provides an assessed value, township tax. And I wish Jeff was here, because Jeff asked a lot of questions about this planning, about taxes. This assumes that there's a 5-year build out. So year one is 1/5 of the $127,000, or $127,600. It's 1/5 of that And then column about the middle of the page is the transfer tax for that 0.5% of those 1/5 of the total number of houses. Then there's EIT, which that's divided by 1/5 as well. So as you look down over the years, you can see that it climbs because it's 2/5 and 3/5 and 4/5 and 5/5. I also put another factor in there, which kind of the average turnover is about every 7 years houses turn. That may or may not, you can factor that in or not, but year 6 is probably the year you want to look at for the future going forward. So after year 6, that's billed out. No transfer taxes are included, and there's no turnover included. So that's what you should expect if you don't increase taxes, and that's a total of the township tax plus the EIT. So it's 127 plus 110. 110 is that EIT tax is based on a combined household income of $100,000, which is pretty consistent with what our market studies show us. Then below that, I put in, I added what the Morgantown crossings, the entire site, the 64-acre site, that includes the Walmart, all the strip stores, the restaurants, or whatever else is there, the Lowe's. You're getting $61,000, $62,000 roughly every year from them. They don't pay transfer tax, and you don't get any EIT, earned income tax, from them because there's no residences. So one of the concerns was this is going to be a tax burden on the township. It actually will generate more taxes than if a similar property from like over at Walmart would be moved over to this site. And if you go to the next slide, that's just the supporting information, the number of homes times what the sale price is, and we're kind of shocked that that's where prices are. 400,000 is not where we started. Mr. Farino, we were on the phone with townhomes, that you don't do a townhome that's less than 320 anywhere. So they're realistic numbers. Wish they would be lower for the buyers, but they are what they are. We valued the commercial part, the 8-acre part, at $10 million. That number could go up or down depending on the uses that go in there. They're all formula based. Current taxes, it's just math, and I apologize that the one I gave you, I didn't intentionally load that first year up. I just, as I was going through it today, I figured it was overstated by about, I don't know, 20,000 maybe. I believe that's the last slide. What I'd like to do is ask Mr. Hawes, our attorney, to kind of wrap up what we're asking for tonight, and then if you want to allow questions, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Chip Hawes, I'm an attorney with Barlow Snyder, here on behalf of Brooks Homes. I'll first make the request and then explain how we got to that point. We'd like to request that the township approve advertising a hearing on the proposed zoning ordinance amendment for its March 8th, 2020